es insuficiente.
First of all, congratulate everybody, the members of the European Parliament and the...
Quisiera felicitar a los miembros del Parlamento Europeo. Hay que tener en cuenta las voces de las comunidades locales y de las ONGs medioambientales. El sonido es insuficiente para una interpretación correcta. Lo sentimos mucho.
For example, bear in mind that 150 billion tons of rocks are extracted every year, generating...
Vamos a resumir lo que podamos y lo que entendamos. Es importante recordar que la minería es cada vez más destructiva y requiere mucha energía. Por ejemplo, lo oímos nada, lo sentimos. Se necesitan cada vez más minería profunda y luego diques o represas de relaves.
Staggering. We are being told that we should mine as much copper in the next 30 years as is being mined in the last 7,000 years. That means, for example, for lithium and cobalt, we also have to increase 500%, a growth rate of 3% with a global destruction every 25 years. More mining is being rallied to fight climate change. Yet the production of the sum of the basic metals represent 7% of the greenhouse emissions. Every consumption and emissions of mines are increasing due to lower grades and low-cost bulk operations. Allow me now to share some of the glimpses what it means this. For example, in Spain, next slide, please. The small, can we have the next slide, please? Because I'm jumping about. Carry on. Next. There we are. The small Tinto and Odiol rivers in Spain transport 37% of the zinc and 15% of the copper contributed by all the world's rivers to the seas and oceans in the planet. This means basically that the impacts on miners are huge. As we speak, a plan to increase the capacity of Rio Tinto tailings dam in Huelva has been approved to host over 180 million cubic meters of tailings. We have witnessed just now the statement of Steve Emmerman, what that means, assuring destruction and loss of human life when they eventually fail, because tailings dams also fell in Europe. Think of the disasters in Romania, Sweden, France, Hungary, or Finland, and many of the others. Although the NIMBY, basically, we have to remind ourselves of Anargoya Dam, for example, that fell in 1998, causing Doñana disaster in spite of the years of warnings by environmental groups. And still the company Boliden hasn't paid, and still we are basically denouncing the unsafety of these dams in Rio Tinto. And still, as we are actually speaking, basically, in the case of Anargoya, the dams are going to reopen. And as we speak, 14 civil servants and politicians are standing in court over crimes of corruption, embezzlement, fraud, and other criminal accounts. Next, please. Next slide, please. Still in Spain, I'm going to basically, I'll have other examples of how bad things are in Spain, but if you go to the next slide, please, and the next, there we are. No, that's it. In the face of this situation, please allow me to convey a critical issue with environmental NGOs and local communities, as we are having difficulty in conveying to the European Commission and the member states. For example, in 2018, the Commission produced a document, EU Actions to Improve Environmental Compliance and Governance. It included an interesting figure of types of conduct in the context of environmental compliance with potential responses, with a gradient that moves from champions to criminals. Recent soft policy documents by the Commission, which are being translated into similar policies and laws across the member states, are built on the assumptions that mining operators are climate champions that should be rewarded, relaxing laws and providing millions of euros in public subsidies. On the ground, the conduct of some of the most prominent European mining operators are actually outright criminals. And I'll give you two examples summarized. Next, please. Cobre Las Cruces, a large copper mine in Spain, has just been imposed €1 million fine for illegal extraction of groundwater. The same happened in 2016. And another €1.5 million fine for the same conduct is pending. In all cases, sanctions were imposed after claims in reports by Ecoloxistas and Acción. The mine's tailings dam fell again in 2019. As a reward, Cobre Las Cruces has just got a grant of €1.5 million by the European Commission for the Raw Miner Horizon 2020 project, and previously had got another Horizon project award for €2.7 million. Next slide, please. Valoriza Minería is another Spanish company, basically, who has benefited from the next Horizon 2020 project. Part of this funding of this project by the European Commission has served to pay the salary of the director of St. Finks mine, who is now being prosecuted together with the company for illegally discharging acid mine drainage in the nearby river without permits. I will sort of summarize some of the other problems we have with Valoriza, which are many, but basically these mines and things has been the subject of many petitions, and still things are not getting any better. Prompted by Ecoloxistas en Acción to investigate, the Commission not only has failed to act, but is now covering up its own due diligence by refusing access to information to anything to do with the St. Finks mine. Next slide, please. And now I'm just going to give you my conclusions. We call this Parliament to pause, reflect, and invite the Commission to do the same. We've seen from previous speakers how urgent it is to wake up to our green daydreaming. First of all, EU consumption needs to be brought in line with planetary boundaries. Please take note of the recent briefings, for example, growth without economic growth by the European Environmental Agency, or the very good seas at risk breaking free from mining. One of the reasons for the failure of the European circularity policies is that nobody has seriously considered the need to leave minerals in the ground and the seabed, because I remind the members of this Parliament their commitment for a moratorium in deep sea mining, for example. Metal recycling must be taken seriously. Also, EU legislation of mining waste needs to be brought in line with advanced regulations that exist around the world. Otherwise, as in Garcia Marquez's novel, we'll see chronicle of a disaster foretold. In fact, many disasters. The Commission must stop using soft policy instruments like the critical raw materials list as a way to advance the interests of the mining lobby. Such policies require public participation through strategic impact assessment procedures. Also, the Commission must put an end to undemocratic industry alliances such as the European Raw Material Alliance. We must guard against the acquisitions of unwarranted influence by such industrial academic complex. We must also stop continuing EU funding for undemocratic methods of eroding and undermining civil society's efforts to combat the extensive corruption and environmental misconduct by mining operators and the administrations that are theoretically responsible for the oversight. Environmental groups, local communities and individuals need to be supported, encouraged and empowered to exercise the right and duties to act.
It is possible to conclude?
Yes, I am concluding. Environmental citizens in the face of this new wave of mining. In fact, of so many mining projects, the EU must develop new legally binding protocols so that local communities and indigenous people have the right to say no to mining and to protect rights of nature throughout democratic means. We will soon produce a detailed report of the breaches of EU law and cases of misconduct that have been briefly mentioned, and invite the Committee of the Petitions to consider a fact-finding visit to investigate some of these problems in Spain. Thank you very much for your attention, and on behalf of Ecoloxistas and Acción, let me convey the urgency that the important issues that have been discussed in this hearing are properly addressed. Thank you.